Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the podcast version of Trey's Variety Hour is brought to you by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hangout. This is going to be a great one. We've got a special show planned tonight and all kinds of amazing people. Here's sort of the order of operations. We'll go around and everyone will make their introductions, and they can tell you about themselves, and they can plug whatever they want to plug. That's cool. And then we're going to jump into our kind of photography horror stories, embarrassing stories, funny things that have happened on shoots. We have a randomized wheel of horror that we'll be spinning. Dave, show us this wheel of horror.
Right on.
Where's our wheel of horror? I'm asking my number one guy here. All right, pull it up. We got to see this thing. It's exciting. Oh, I think this thing wasn't on demand as I thought. Oh, you assigned everyone a color. Look at that. Okay, don't spin it yet. Don't spin it yet.
I'm just demonstrating.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then everyone has brought a number of horror stories they will be sharing with us. So that's, and then just like last week, we had sort of these Google Plus photographer discoveries. We always finding new, interesting people to follow and circle on Google Plus. So we all brought one of those to share. And then we have questions and answers at the end. Everyone that's watching the high def feed on live.twit.tv, you're welcome to join the chat room. I'm in there. A lot of other people are in there. We're going to be looking for questions and kind of hanging out in there as well. So everyone is welcome. All right, let's go around to introductions. Let's start with Jeremy, who's got a really cool square aspect ratio with his camera somehow.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So we're starting with, we're jumping into horror stories?
No. Tell us about yourself and your website and what you do and this and that first.
Well, my name is Jeremy Cowart. I am currently living and currently sitting in Los Angeles, California. And I guess you could say I'm a celebrity photographer. I'm not a celebrity, but I photograph celebrities.
You're a celebrity.
I love it when there have been a few people before that have called me cocky because I call myself a celebrity photographer, thinking that I was calling myself a celebrity. Anyway, I shoot entertainment and musicians, and I do a lot of humanitarian stuff. And I founded an organization for photographers called Help Portrait, where we give photos to people in need around the world. And I'm a huge Scott Kelby fan.
Well, let's go next to Scott then. Scott, you've got one fan here.
I'm a huge Jeremy Cowart fan.
I had to surprise him with that.
That did catch me off guard.
Well, Scott, tell us all about you. Not that nobody knows about you already, but just indulge us.
So I write books on photography and on Photoshop. And I run an association called the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. So I'm a Photoshop guy by trade. And let's see what else. Oh, I run a worldwide photo walk. That is a nightmare. But it's great fun when it happens, but everything leading up to it is a total disaster. And then let's see what else. I am publisher of Photoshop User Magazine and executive editor of Light It Magazine, which is an iPad magazine for lighting. And I teach basically Photoshop. That's what I'm in. I am in Austin, Texas, the land of Trey, and taught a class here today.
Yes, Scott was nice enough to join us. We just had dinner together, and I asked him if he wanted to be on, and he said yes. So thanks very much for coming, Scott.
Oh, my pleasure. And it was a yummy dinner too.
It was good. You ate very healthy. I was impressed. I thought you might blow it out, but yeah.
I spent 3 years eating bad food. Now I'm trying to eat good food.
Yeah, you can dial it back on occasion. That's all right. Okay. let's say hello to Nicole Young. Hello,
Hi,
Nicole.
Trey. Hi.
Hello.
I'm a food and I guess lifestyle photographer. I do a lot of stock photography and I write books, and I have a job with Scott's company over there. I do help desk for the NAPP. So that's me. I'm in Seattle.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. The sun is turned into a big nap hangout somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Sort of flash nap mob. Okay, now let's say hello to your beau, your in case people don't know, this is photography's latest power couple. Your paramour over here, Brian. Hello, Brian. Tell us all about you.
Oh, well, about me. Well, yeah, I am happily co-joined with Nicole.
Co-joined.
Co-joined with that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm blushing. No, I'm currently in Portland and just moved here. I work for On One Software. I'm the curriculum and education manager, and we're actually a sponsor of NAPP and in Photoshop World and the various tours. I believe we actually had a representative at Scott's event at Austin today. So, yeah, there's a lot of going on over here of this NAPP love. I do our webinars and our education and our training videos, but I also shoot primarily, Trey, as you know, a lot of HDR stuff, and I'm moving into landscape now that I'm here in the gorgeous Pacific Northwest. So yeah, that's that.
Cool. All right, thank you. And Miss Catherine Hall, tell us all about you and your show and everything you got going on.
Hey, Trey.
Hello.
Welcome to Twit Network.
Yeah, it's
Welcome
exciting.
to the family. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So for those of you that don't know, I am the Twit photo host with Leo, and I'm a professional photographer. I'm seeing Scott's face, but I'm assuming you guys are seeing me right now, correct?
Yes, we see you.
Okay, cool. And pro photographer, and also, oddly enough, a big fan of Scott Kelby myself. Just doing a little reading before the show, and look at it. This is how you know it's real. I have pink bookmarks.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Anyway, yeah, and really excited to be on this panel.
Cool. Well, happy to have you. And hello, RC.
I was just writing something over at the live Twitch chat, and I was like, you know what? This is gonna make it freaking impossible for me to talk about me right now. So I'm like, hi, this is RC. I work for the guy over there. So,
Other way.
Oh, the other way.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm a photographer, one of the Photoshop guys over at Kelby Media Group. I write for Photoshop User TV or Photoshop User Magazine. I do Photoshop User TV, and I host my own show with Larry Becker called D-Town TV, the show for DSLR shooters. So basically our charge is just to kind of teach photography and teach Photoshop. So that's kind of what we do here.
Excellent. And now Mr. Gordon Laing. Hello, Gordon.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Hello, whatever time it is. Thanks for having me on. I don't work for Scott Kelby, although I'm always available.
Not too late.
It's not too late. Let's talk about it. Actually, I wanted to see if this worked. Does this work if I kind of try and do a different aspect ratio?
No.
No, I was just trying to do it, Jeremy. I'm not cool enough. I run a site. My name's Gordon. I run a site called CameraLabs.com where I review digital cameras, lenses, and accessories, and now also publish ebooks. So if you have any interest in buying any photography equipment and you're wondering just how it performs in real life, check it out. I've got some interesting tests that you might enjoy. And since everyone's talking about where they're based, I'm British, but I live in beautiful Queenstown in New Zealand, which is on the other side of the world to you guys.
Yes, it is. Maybe not too long for me, though, I hope.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yes. Roll out the red carpet.
We've got the banners up in the airport. I don't know how much longer they'll last.
And also, I want to thank my producer, Dave Veffer. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. And people can find me at plusdave.com, which brings you to my Google Plus profile.
Cool. Very smart. And Tony, we can't see you, but we can hear you. Hello, Tony.
Hi.
Well, hello, Tony. It's great to see you.
For the shortest intro ever.
He's a man of few words.
Yeah.
Some still waters are deep, some are just puddles. But thank you, Tony, for broadcasting on Twit. You're awesome. And feel free to pipe in anytime, even though we can't see you. We'd love to hear your opinion because we know you love photography too.
Sure. Cool.
Okay, Dave, it's time for our Wheel of Horror. Why don't you pull this up and see who it will land on first? Who will share their tale of ribaldry?
All right, here we go.
Who will regale us
Oh, I like this
with their
Wheel of
story?
Horror.
First up is
5.
Jeremy Cowart.
Ah, Jeremy, you have the talking pillow.
All right, so story of horror, huh?
Yes.
Well, the one that comes to mind is a couple years ago. I was on a shoot for the TV network E, and I got a really rare opportunity, very rare, to shoot all of their talent at once. So we're talking all the Kardashians, Ryan Seacrest, Snoop Dogg, Pamela Anderson, Denise Richards, you name it. Their whole at the time that was their slew of talent on TV, and so I did a shot all day. I got images of Pamela Anderson, Denise Richards, the Kardashians, all those guys. At the end of the day, my assistant was backing up everything, and the hard drive crashed that he was backing up to, and then when we tried to go back to the other one, my computer crashed. So whatever he did, he lost that whole day's shoot.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And it was a 3-day shoot, but most of the talent was not coming back. So I lost all Pamela Anderson. I lost all Denise Richards. I lost all Snoop Dogg that day, Ryan Seacrest. They were all gone.
So, who was the most, I guess, the easiest to work with out of that whole group, would you say?
Probably Ryan Seacrest. He's a really nice guy. In fact, he remembered my name after I briefly stalked him for a day a couple years before. He's like, "Hey, Jeremy, what's up? How's Nashville?" You know, at the time I was living in Nashville. So he's truly, as he seems, very, very genuine.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then,
so what happened? What happened then? What did the E channel say? What happened?
Well, I don't think to this day they realize just how many images were lost. It's kind of a more complicated story, but they knew a lot was lost. We tried to recover as much as we could, but most of it was not recovered. I had more time the next day with the Kardashians and Denise Richards, but I did not have more time with some of the other talent. So it was a pretty bad situation for sure. I don't get mad. I'm a pretty chill guy. I don't get mad on photo shoots. I'm infamously laid back, but I was very, very angry that day for sure.
Oh, that is a bad story. Is that the end of your horror story, Jeremy?
I have one more that can either wait or I can go ahead and share it.
You have to wait for the Wheel of Horror to land upon you again.
All right.
Spin the Wheel of Horror,
All right,
Dave.
here we go. Round and round she
Where will
goes.
it go?
Wherever she stops.
Round and round
Big
it
money, big money.
goes.
Brian Matiash.
Brian, regale us.
Oh, horror. My horror was more, I guess, embarrassing than anything else, just because of my reaction. And it's kind of like Jeremy. This one jumped out as soon as Dave told me about what we had to think about. And so this was about 2 years ago. I was still living in Massachusetts, and I found this abandoned school on the western part of Massachusetts, almost on the New York border, called it's in the town of Belchertown. And I did my research. I figured out, what there was to shoot. It was one of those, in abandoned urbex locations that would be perfect for HDR. And so I go there. I went with a buddy of mine because this was a big place. If you looked on Google Maps, it took up a huge part of Belchertown. And if you read on Wikipedia, the stuff that went down over there was not very fun. So I had some, apprehensions overall. We get there, and it turns out to be this Shangri-La. As far as I was concerned, it was awesome. Just wild, abandoned location, tons of graffiti. And my buddy who I was with, we kind of made an agreement. We will stay within earshot so that, because we didn't know how easy it is to get lost or if anyone would get hurt. And so, sure enough, all of you who go out shooting, especially in this kind of a place, you get into the zone. You forget everything. You just kind of wander. So sure enough, I don't know how long it was, but we were gone, and I didn't even bother calling for him. And so here I am, I'm walking, and I heard just a rustle, something to kind of get me out of the zone. And I walk around the corner, and I see this guy with this like gas mask respirator thing on, and I freaked out. I mean, the highest pitched scream you can think of. And you know how you think when something like this will happen, you're like, oh wait, on my tripod, it's going to be my battle axe. I'm going to go into this Matrix style maneuver, and I'm going to disarm this dude. I booked. I mean, left the tripod. It could have been, Nicole standing there. I would have ran because this was the scare. Like in these abandoned areas, the only light that comes through is that sunlight through whatever holes in the roof or the windows. And so I'll never forget his face. And he was a photographer. Long story short, he was a photographer who was there as well, just happened to be doing his own thing. Other than the three of us, I think there was no one else there. It just so happened he was smarter. He had this respirator because there is some asbestos in the air over there. But, oh, man, that was I do remember the scream. I do remember him laughing. He started crying because he started calling me as soon as I started running away. That goes down for me the most embarrassing, scariest thing ever. So
did you get a picture of this guy?
I didn't get a picture. I didn't get a picture with his gas mask. I got a picture with him, just like we took a picture of each other. But he turned out to be a nice guy. I asked him actually if I can show his stuff, and he preferred not to because I guess he's trying to keep his cover for these things. I guess he does a lot more than I do. So, but yeah, that was an interesting time.
Cool. All right, spin the wheel, Dave.
All right, who is next?
Who is next?
Let's find out. It's going to be Gordon.
Gordon.
Three.
Go for it.
Yay.
Right. Well, blimey, how do you choose from the catalogue of errors and embarrassment that is anything to do with my life or professional career? I know I have one to share from only about 3 weeks ago, which I actually shared on Google+. So some of you may have already seen this story. I'm going to try and share something from my desktop. Let's see if this works. Can you guys see a picture of a mountain and a camera?
Yes.
Excellent. This is the mountain where I left this camera overnight 2 weeks ago. I was invited at the last minute by Jason Law, a fellow Queenstown photographer. If you're watching, Jason, how are you doing? He said, "Oh, come up the Remarkables. I'm taking some pictures of the sunset." Remarkables is a big mountain range that's on one side of Queenstown. So I drove up to meet him. And being, a lily-livered limey, I was expecting him to be at the side of the road, but he wasn't. He'd bushwhacked off into the distance, and I was getting... They have this plant, this native plant called speargrass, and I don't need to tell you anything more about it other than that the name suits the plant when it's jabbing your flesh as you try and find your friend who's taking pictures in meter-long grass. Now, I had two cameras with me, one that I was testing and one of my own kind of reference models. And the reference model, which was the Canon T3i or 600D, you see here in this picture, I ended up not using that a lot in this shot, and I was concentrating on this other camera I was testing, and I was talking to Jason, and what always surprises me, even though I've seen it every night in my life, is how quickly it gets dark when the sun sets. It sounds like an obvious statement, but in some parts of the world, sometimes a year, it gets really dark really fast. And when you're stuck on the side of a mountain, you kind of want to get off it pretty quickly. So Jason started wandering off, so I started wandering after him. I had a quick look around. I thought I had everything, but I had that sick feeling in my stomach that you have when you know you've done something wrong, you've forgotten something. And when I got home late that night, I realized I'd left one of my cameras there on the mountain. And the next day, fortunately, it didn't rain that night. So the next day, I drove up there, and this is exactly where I found it. I'd not touched it at all. I took this picture with my phone, and luckily no sheep had knocked it off, and no hobbits or orcs had passed by in the night and had taken it for themselves. So that's my short horror story. I have more to share later. Should the wheel of horror end on my face?
That's quite a nice cell phone picture, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that in.
Yeah, I thought so. That was from a Galaxy S2. I just cannot take a decent picture with a camera phone. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how Lisa Bettany and all the rest of these people who take these great photos with their iPhones. I don't know how they do it. Maybe I've understood that they're using an iPhone and I've got an Android phone. But I just wobble it so much, I just can't hold the thing properly. But that was one of the few decent cell phone pictures I took, and the wind was blowing a hoolie, let me tell you.
Yeah, not too bad. All right, Dave, spin it.
All right, here we go.
Whose avatar will it land on? That was a quick spin.
Lame spin. Do it
Was
again.
that a valid spin?
No.
It's got to land on a color.
Up.
Cool.
And we just did Brian. I'm going to spin again.
Yeah, spin again.
All right, we got RC.
Okay, RC. Let us have it. I think you're muted, RC.
You're muted.
All right, yeah. So is that coming in a little bit better?
Yeah, go for it.
Now I'm gonna go ahead and just I posted a picture just now over on my Google Plus page. So if you go to gplusrc.com, that's where you have it. But I'll go ahead and I'll switch just so that you guys can see it here. But I don't do outdoors too much. So this is the picture that I have, which is a picture of a bald eagle, which I think is kind of cool. So I was sitting around not too long ago down here, and I've never really been interested in wildlife stuff, but there's a couple of doctor friends that I have in the area that are like, oh, we got to go out, we got to go shoot eagles. So there's this place called Honeymoon Island, not too far from where I live. And we're like, all right, let's go out and let's go do something. And we go out there and turn around, and I'm like, all right, great. Let's see. Let me just switch this back over here real quick. All right, so there's the eagle. So we go out and we get to Honeymoon Island, and there's these huge lenses. Like, bird photographers don't play when it comes to like carrying lenses. There's like 600s with teleconverters and like 750s and things like that. And we get there to the spot, and there's an eagle's nest in this facility. So they're like, all right, well, where's the eagle's nest? We get to the person in the front. They're like, all right, well, go down this walkway, and you're going to see some barricades. Just go over the barricade. Don't worry about it. Just keep going, and then you're going to run into the eagle's nest. So we go over the barricade. We see a barricade. We go over the barricade, and we get to the eagle's nest. Now, I'm literally like, I think that if I wanted to lob a rock at the nest, I mean, obviously you're not supposed to, but if you wanted to, you could do that. But so I sit there, and now I'm with a 600. It's huge to sit, and the best way that I can, the way that I can describe shooting with a 600, it's almost kind of like, and I can't believe that I'm going to make a Star Wars reference, but it's like that scene in Star Wars where Luke's trying to shoot TIE fighters out of the Millennium Falcon. It's just swinging all over the place, and you can't hit a damn thing. I was just trying to, it's like I get a corner of a tail or I get a corner of a wing, but I'm like, these things are freakishly close. I'm like, this is really good. And I'm looking behind my camera, and I'm like, this is like fish in a barrel. I'm like, this is pretty easy. I can do this. So we're shooting, and I'm like, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So as it turns out, we're sitting there, and this eagle's just kind of swooping around, and I'm like, chill, eagle, don't worry about it. It's just going to take a couple pictures, nothing big. So we do that, and as we're kind of wrapping everything up, all of a sudden it's like a cop shows up, and he's like, what the hell are you guys doing here? And I'm like, eagle. We got to take a picture of that. And he's like, don't know. And he's like holding his arm and holding on his side. And he's like, you guys stay right there. I just finished phoning like the troopers and all of this kind of stuff. You guys are on federally protected land. And all these cops show up, and I'm standing there, and I'm like, what's going on? And it literally took the better part of an hour and change before all these cops showed up. And they're like, listen, the guy at the front told us that we saw a barricade, jump over this fence. What happened was they were running a race at the same time, and there was a dude who was supposed to show up and put a barricade up to divert people for the race. He slept in late that day, and he wasn't there. So the barricade wasn't there. So the next barricade that we saw was the federal protected lands something minimum distance net for this bald eagle. And we just went right over it. And we're just like, just hanging out under the eagle. We're like, sup, eagle? So we're like in this like super federal, they're going to take you into the pen and do stuff, overshooting an eagle. And they're like, we're going to have to confiscate your cards and we're going to confiscate this. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying to talk as fast as I can and pull cards out of my cameras. Cause I'm like, I'm just going to stick them in my pocket and put my dummy cards in there. But that was a very, very scary experience. And considering the fact that I'm from the Bronx, it's to have the scariest experience be shooting a bald eagle in Florida was kind of trippy. But after a while they kind of understood it, and hey, cool eagle pictures. So
well, at least you got a picture to show for it.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, that's right. The painful eagle.
Cool. All right, spin it. Who's next?
Spin away. Trey Ratcliff is now your turn.
Okay, that's me. Okay, I'll tell a story from China. I was in the Hunan province, super duper remote place, and I had an assistant down there, sort of a local guy, and I was going to go out the next morning to shoot, and I was staying in a hostel. Normally, I don't stay in hostels. I like to stay like in nicer hotels if I can, just because I have stuff and I want it to be kind of safe. And, you know, when you're in a hostel, you never know who you're going to be sleeping with, like some, you know, Romanian fiddle player. You never know. And so I got both rooms to myself. So because I like to lay out my stuff. And I knew I was going to have to get up really early the next morning. He said, I have to be downstairs at 4:30. 4:30. Are you sure it's got to be that early? Said, yeah, so 4:30. Okay, fine. So I go to sleep. I wake up on time and I get all my act together and I get downstairs. It's like 3 flights, and it was super dark. And it's sort of an old kind of house, like sort of a Chinese family's house, but there's sort of a front desk and you can kind of make out stuff. And anyway, I went to the front door and I tried to open it, but it was locked. And I kind of felt around and searched, but there's no bolt lock or anything I could turn. There didn't seem to be anything. And then I realized it was the kind that you had to use a key on from the inside. I thought, oh no, I'm locked inside. What am I going to do? So I shook on it a little bit. Then I started looking around the lobby to try to figure out, you know, how am I going to get out of here? And near the door, there was this big white box. It appeared to be like covered in sheets or drapes or something white. And it's strange and kind of out of place, and I didn't really remember it. And so I went over to the front desk, tried to find a key. There wasn't one there. So then I went back to the door and tried to, jimmy it a little bit. And I thought maybe it's kind of the kind of knob that you could push in and twist, and maybe it would come loose. And then I started shaking it more and more vigorously, and the panes of the glass and the wood was creaking, and it was making quite a racket. And then all of a sudden, out of this big white box, I started seeing like all these elbows and knees and all these limbs flying out. And like this 70-year-old naked Chinese guy flew out of there. He was like real skinny with like ribs showing, and he was like in my face and yelling at me, and it was just all elbows and yelling. And he thought I was breaking into this place because I had made such a racket. And then my assistant was outside. He was begging and screaming and not helping the situation. And then I was yelling back at him. He didn't know what I was saying. I was just trying to diffuse the situation, or just let him know I'm trying to get out, not get in. And then I pulled out my room key and I showed him my room key, and he goes, you're a guest. And then he just calmly let me out. So that was sort of the beginning to that morning. And the end of my story. Spin the wheel, Dave.
Spin. Catherine,
wait, hold up. You can't just all of a sudden. You can't just start off with like an exploding Chinese guy and then just go, "Hey, that's my story next." Dude, you gotta let people like marinate with that a little bit. It's like, all right, and you were safe. Everything was okay.
Yeah,
good.
Everything's okay. I didn't get beat up or anything. It's all right.
I'm sitting there talking in the chat, and all of a sudden, it's just like you started off with a fiddle player who turned the lights off, and it's like all I can think of is just like. Very, very dark, and then all you hear is Trey. What you thinking about?
No,
It's a Chinese golem.
Yeah, no, that's more of a Nicole Bryan conversation there, really.
I don't get it.
Yeah. All right. Spin it, Dave.
I
Who's
spun,
next?
And it's Catherine. Catherine is the winner.
Ah, Catherine.
There we go. I'll do something short just to break it up.
Okay.
So I was in India, and as Brian was mentioning earlier, when you're shooting, oftentimes you sort of forget your surroundings. And I was near the Ganges River standing in some mud, or what I thought was mud. And was kind of thinking a little bit, but it was like, oh, I got to get my shot, And then when I was thinking up to almost halfway between my feet and my knees, and it was time to get out, and I could not get out. Like I was sinking. It was quicksand of some sort. And so here I am, crazy white girl in freaking quicksand with my camera, like the biggest tourist dork that you could possibly imagine. And it took 3 full-size Indian men to get me out. So
was it like in the movies?
It was like in the freaking movies. That stuff you cannot, like I physically could have not gotten out.
Wait, was it just you, or was it also your gear?
It was me and the camera I was holding.
Okay, so you were okay.
I had a backpack on.
Were you just sinking
all of a
and
sudden
sinking?
throw it and just get rid of the gear?
You were just holding it over your hands and just like
It's really slow. It's deceiving because it's not like you're like sinking all of a sudden. So you have that sort of human panic where you think, oh, I got to get out of this. It's more like, oh, I'm kind of sinking in this. I can get out in a second because the transition wasn't very quick.
Was it there like, in the movies, there's always like a vine that you could grab on at the last
No.
minute. Was there a vine?
Well, but actually, Trey, that's a great question because that was the problem. And one of the reasons why it took 3 men is they can't get that close to you because then they're all going in. So like everyone was trying to get me out, but they couldn't really get that close to me. So they kind of had to form a circle around me.
And how far down did you get before they pulled you out?
No, I only went to like my knees. Like it didn't go down that much, but I couldn't get out. That's the freaky thing. Like just imagine trying to get out and not being able to move your legs out. And India is not exactly the most, I was there by myself, like wandering around 20-something girl. It's not, certainly not the place you want to get sucked into quicksand by yourself, so that's my horror story. So beware of your surroundings.
Thank you.
I don't know. I think Jeremy's is my favorite so far because whenever anything bad happens, I'm just going to think of Jeremy's shoot.
Yeah, that's the worst.
It's funny.
That's the worst.
It's funny because I was sitting here having nightmares about quicksand. I'm like, man, that would be the most miserable because you could have died. I mean,
I could have died. I'm joking about it and laughing about it, but like I couldn't physically get out. And then people can't get you out, like you said, Trey, through a vine. But if you don't have a vine around hanging out, then I don't know.
And this is when you can tell that we're photographers because everybody's just like, man, you know what? You could have got killed. Exploding person could have been all over you. But man, dude, losing a shoot. Wow. Dude, it was Snoop for crying out loud. Man, what was that like? What was his face like?
Well, all of our horror stories may pale in comparison to Scott Kelby. We could dispense with the wheel because we know Scott is next.
All right, I don't. It's not a horrible story, but it had an emotional impact because it went so badly that I canceled an entire series that I was going to do. You know how as photographers we look for personal projects to do to grow, and I had made up my mind I was going to do a personal project, and I came up with an idea, and my wife helped me come up with this, and the idea is going to sound very good. It was. I wanted to do a series called Budget Bride. So, you have all these wedding photographers shooting these $50,000 weddings and the horse carriages and all this stuff. I thought, I want to go the other way. I'm going to do a series with brides that have no money. And like one of the ideas was to shoot a wedding reception at an ice cream truck in like a neighborhood with the bride and the groom and everybody lined up. And we had all these great ideas of the bride and the groom carrying their own bags from the car and just really like these people have no money, but they're in love. And I really wanted to do the romance of it all. So the first shoot in this series, we found an old hotel on Clearwater Beach with the old neon. I mean, a really just an awful place, but it was perfect for this. And I came up with the idea that we would try the first one outdoors, and we would set up a little area by the pool, and I would have a bride and a groom, and they would be eating Chinese food. They'd be burning little candles and have a bottle of wine with the price tag still on it. So it's like you realize these people have no money, but they're young and in love, and nobody cares. And what I didn't realize at this point is this: if you have a bride in a wedding dress, I don't care what kind of story you're trying to tell, it looks like a regular wedding photo. So, but that's not the problem with the shoot. We go to the shoot, and I take my brand new Quadra pack. So it's a small power pack this big with 2 heads. Marcy knows where this is going.
I'm muting myself because I'm like, oh.
So we take this on location, and we hire a female to be the bride, which is, I think, is a good call. And and she was very wonderful. And then we hired a brand new male model. He had never modeled before. And so they meet, and I'm having them pose as though we're warming up for the shoot. And I say, well, you're going to be, bride and groom, you're going to be getting married. And so he's holding her at arm's length like this. And I'm like, this isn't very romantic. This is like your bride has the flu and you're trying not to catch it. So we finally got them together, and now he's got her in his arms, and he looks at me at one point and goes, this is the greatest job in the world. Because he's holding this stranger they just met, and he's, and they're really, really hitting it off. But as soon as we actually get the lighting set up, I take 2 shots, and it absolutely starts pouring rain. Now, my assistant Brad laid out all my equipment. We had all this equipment everywhere, so Brad starts running around and trying to gather it. I look over, and the Quadra pack is in the pouring rain. It is literally sitting all by itself in the pouring rain. It's $2,400, and I look over, and it's covered in water. So I grab it, and I pull it under the cover. And so it's raining and raining, and there's nothing we can do. It is pouring down at a level. So my wife and my kids are driving. They're out, not too far from where we're shooting. So I invited them to come down. They drive up, and it's raining so badly that nobody can even get out of the car. And I realize this shoot is over. All of a sudden, it kind of clears. We move to a new section. I set the Quadra up, and we dry it all off and with everything. I turn the power on of the Quadra, and sparks come shooting out of it. And they're going, pop, pop, pop. Dead. Absolutely dead. We set up so now we're down to our backup light, which is a Nikon SP900. We set the whole thing up. A huge gust of wind comes. It goes crashing over into the water. I'm like,
no.
I'm going to show you I only took 2 frames. I'm going to show you one of the frames because I was so upset when this was done because it just went as bad as it could go. And then when I finally got the shot, it just looks like another bridal shot. It didn't have the romance. I didn't even have time to build it. I lost thousands of dollars worth of I had to pay for 2 models and a wedding dress and all. It was just a disaster from the beginning to the end. Everything. But I want to show you that I got 2 frames. I've never really shown these because I wasn't happy with it. But let me do the screen share here, and I'll just show you. All right, so let's see. We want this one. Here we go. Tell me when you can see the picture.
We see it.
All right. So, lovely bride, lovely groom, kind of a crappy shot. You can see the idea there. We went to a 7-Eleven and bought the champagne. We left the price tag on the front. We have the little tea candles. They're eating Chinese. It's supposed to be romantic. It's just a stupid picture. Look over here. Look at this stuff. Look at all the power lines. This was like a test shot for the lighting, and that's all we were. Because I'm telling you what, 60 seconds from the moment this was captured, we were in the worst thunderstorm. And so I had to jump. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
I had to jump under this thing, and I look out over here, and the pack's sitting out here in the rain. So this was the only shot that we got. It was kind of brutal. And so I was and if you look at it, at the end of the day, it just looks like another wedding shot. We never got to develop it, and I killed the whole series. I said, that's it. I'm not going to do it because I didn't want to do wedding shots. I wanted to tell the story, and I was so disappointed and had lost so much equipment that I was like, I'm done. So that was it. Now, there is one silver lining to all of this. So
Yes.
as we're doing, are you seeing me again?
Yes.
Okay. So the one silver lining was, so at the end of the shoot, the bride and groom have become very comfortable with each other, and Brad and I are packing up the equipment, and just everything's just dripping with water, and we look and we see the bride go and get into the groom's truck, and they drive away. And we're leaving shortly thereafter, and we see them pull into a very nice steakhouse on the way out. So the good thing that came out of this was it's possible that the bride and groom fell in love.
That is a nice story there.
However, it destroyed my series.
Well, thanks for that one. That was a good one. Hey, before we go on another round of the Wheel of Horror, if people want to ask questions in the chat room, Dave Veffer's keeping track of them. You can ask questions of anybody, and we'll go through those at the end. Or people that are watching now live in Google Plus, just go to live.twit.tv and join the chat room. Most of us are in there chatting away, so we'd like to see you in there. Okay, Dave, spin.
Well, you didn't do Nicole yet, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nicole? Sorry.
Trey.
Well,
okay.
Brian went, and I think of you two as one, and that's.
Wait, I have to think of me and then him on the sideline, though. It should be
Right.
me first, right?
Yeah, ladies. Oh, wait.
Right. A true
But you
matriarchal
saved the best
society.
for last. You know, there's actual bloodshed in my horror story.
Oh, good. Give us
So,
blood
teaser.
and gore.
Yeah, it's not that exciting, but stick around. No, so my story is a few years back, I lived in, I think it was 2008. I was living in Monterey, California, and I had my little studio set up in my garage, and I had a backdrop stand. If you guys have ever seen those big pop-up little white reversible white and black background, and they just kind of hang with like a little little piece of cloth that hangs from the middle of the backdrop stand. So I had that setup going on, and I was moving things around. I think I wanted to lower the stand down a little bit. So I grabbed, you twist it, and then the pole kind of comes down. I twisted it, and then it just went boom right on my hand. And so I got a nice little, can you see my little scar on my finger?
Yes.
Yeah. It was like squishing out. I could see the insides, and I got a trip to the emergency room and a bunch of stitches. Well, probably like 3, but so that was my exciting bloodshed horror story.
Brian, how can you date somebody so disfigured? It's grotesque.
A lot of fortitude.
Yeah.
That finger is heinous.
Yeah.
The better question would be, Nicole, how can you date somebody with such a high octave shrill?
I haven't heard it yet. I'm gonna have to prompt it somehow.
Just scare him, induce
How
a
would you do
scream,
that? I wonder.
induce a
know.
scream,
Oh, I
and
know.
then tape it.
I'll take him. I'll secretly take him to the jellyfish exhibit at the Monterey Aquarium.
Oh yeah.
He's deathly afraid of jellyfish.
You could do that. Or what you could do is you could just hold your disfigured hand over him when he wakes up.
God, that's so bad.
Brian, I just want to know that when you scream, do you do the whole hands thing and everything? Or do you
Yeah.
No, in that one, that was a silhouette of my smoke when I ran. Hey,
Like the
you know
cartoon
what?
smoke.
You see someone come at you with this freaky mask on, and you're in the zone. You're not thinking about anything else. Yeah. So I screamed, and I'm proud of it. I owned it.
Yeah, you got to own it. You have to own these horrible mistakes.
I would love to be able to reproduce it, but I'm sure everyone's noise cancellations with Google, they wouldn't even get the full
spectrum.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, spin us up.
All right, I've
Where
rigged the
are we
trap
going?
door under the next person.
Round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows.
Oh, that's a.
Does that qualify as yellow? I think that.
Uh,
what- What's going on here?
There we go. Gordon.
All right, Gordon.
Well, it's a setup that went around about 14 times.
Yeah, that was very questionable.
Well, it landed in the middle of 5 and 6,
Yeah.
and then it landed back on the
Yeah,
coast.
it's kind of in the yellow. Yeah, go ahead, Gordon. You're the undisputed champion of this round. Go.
Oh, really? Well, you're going to be potentially disappointed with this one. This is more a kind of practical horror story as opposed to an amusing or extremely pain-worthy one. It's actually to do with an event that only happens once, and this is both an exciting thing, but a terrifying thing for many photographers because you can't get the event to happen again. You know, you can't. If you make a mistake, you're stuffed. And there's quite a few of these, but the biggest one that I ever took and completely blew was the final flight of the space shuttle. Now, the clue's in the title again. The final flight of the space shuttle. They're not going to do it again. I mean, you know, maybe at a wedding or some other event, you might be able to get them to sign the vows again if you blew it, or you might be able to get, you know, somebody to stand in the award place, but they're not going to launch that spaceship ever again. So I had one chance to do it. I actually had two chances to do it. I went for the second last launch, but they didn't fly it when I was there. So I went back for the last one, and I'm going to share a picture, hopefully. For some reason, iPhoto doesn't do what I want it to do. But hopefully you should now see... Oh, come on, man. Oh, yeah, do you see this picture? That's me having found my camera on the mountain. Do you see that one?
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah, that's me feeling quite pleased with myself. All right, here we go. Right, this is a kind of, not before and after, this is a during and during. The space shuttle sits on the ground for days, weeks, even months, allowing you to line up your shot very, very easily. You really should have no excuse in terms of your composition. You know where it's going to go. It's going to go up. You know the direction. It does the same thing every time. So lining it up shouldn't be a problem. However, getting the exposure right can be a problem. Now, on the day of the final launch, I mean, Trey, you were there as well in a different location. It was kind of a bit overcast and pretty hazy, and the seeing wasn't fantastic from where I was, but I kind of metered it very carefully because you've got to do this all manually, because when this thing goes up, the engines behind it are so bright. I mean, this was the biggest shock for me. I'd only ever seen pictures of a rocket launch before. I'd never seen one in person. And when you look at those engines behind it, you think, well, sure, they're bright. You know, they're white. But how bright are they really in person? And they're like two little bits of the sun poking out under those solid rocket boosters. They're that bright. So if you were relying on any kind of automatic metering, you're stuffed, because it's going to go, wow, it's totally bright, quick, big, fastest shutter speed you've got, smallest aperture you've got, and everything else is going to be silhouetted. So you meter for the actual spaceship itself. So I did all that, and it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, sun comes out. And I was like, what? Oh, my God, I've got 2 seconds. What do I do? So I just whipped around the shutter speed setting on it, and I must have dialed it down by about 4 stops. And, of course, it's flying now. You've got your finger on the button. Everyone's cheering. And all you can think, I mean, I'm loving the moment, but all you're thinking of is, man, I think I've blown it. You know, this thing is going to come out looking terribly. So on the left is what I actually captured. And it looks like it's almost like a night launch, but that's in the middle of the day. And my pictures were all horribly underexposed. And on the right is an attempt that our good friend Scott Coupling did for me using, I think, the Veffer, is it? The plugin from Nick, which allows you to actually say, look, I want this bit to be bright, but don't change anything else. Because what I wanted was the orbiter, the actual spaceship, to kind of look white, because that's what it does, but kind of without affecting anything else. So I've ended up with a picture that I'm pleased with, but is absolutely not representative of what happened on the day. And I don't feel so bad, because I seem to recall you saying, Trey, that you'd also had some exposure problems with the shuttle as well. Is that true?
Yeah, mine was, my winner shot ended up being with my 50mm prime, which was after my big camera started buffering right after about 12 or 13 seconds. It still had room before it hit the clouds. I picked up my Chewbacca bandolier 50mm and started firing away. And those were all horribly overexposed. But these raw files, you can dial them back and really rescue them. So I felt stupid when I saw the result, but then I thought, oh, it's a raw file. I can. But they were all very fast shutter speeds and super bright. So I had it was sharp and all that good stuff is just overexposed. But yeah, I know what you mean.
One of the other problems I had is that I had so much equipment with me and I had a lot of redundancy there. I had backup cameras. I had 2 Rebel T3Is or 600Ds that I was going to be using, one as a backup and one as, for the main shot. And I had it all lined up and it was working great. And I just noticed, I was filming some video just before the launch. And I noticed, how a lot of times with video, if you're not using neutral density filters, the aperture is forced to close right down. And that's when you notice you've got dust on the sensor. And I did not have dust in any normal place. I had it right slap bang in the middle of the sensor, right over where the space shuttle was going to go. And even with a 500mm lens and a crop frame body, it was going to obscure most of this spaceship. And I thought, I cannot have that. And this was literally about 20 seconds before the launch. So this was before even the sun changed all the conditions. So I quickly swapped the body for the other one and thought, great, I'm absolutely covered. I feel so smug because I've got this thing set up. Started taking pictures with my main body. And then as soon as it left the frame of the main one, I picked up this replacement, pressed the button, and it's not taking the picture. And I check it, and meanwhile, the spaceship is flying, it's going faster, it's going higher. I'm pressing the button, nothing's happening. I think, why? It's switched on, what's going on? And of course, I'd forgotten that the last picture I took with that camera was a self-timer picture ages earlier, and I'd not turned off the self-timer. So then I think, I don't know if you've ever done this, there's that moment panic where you think, I can recover this, I can come back. If I just keep following the subject, the shutter is going to fire at some point. Like 8, 7, 6, I'm doing my own countdown in my head. As the shuttle, of course, fast approaches this low cloud bank, and literally it pops into the cloud, and then it takes the picture of the cloud. So I was so upset. And that's why I always say on the tutorials I do, if you ever play around with any of the settings, put it back to auto afterwards. Play with, you guys may disagree with me, but and a lot of people have a go at me for saying this on tutorials. They're like, hey, I'm not some kind of amateur. Well, maybe you're not, but I make these mistakes all the time. And if I'm mucking about with the ISO or white balance or exposure, suddenly this amazing opportunity comes along. You grab it, you've got the moment, but of course your settings are all wrong. And that's what happened to me then, the curse of the self-timer.
A sad story, Gordon.
Indeed.
Spin us up, Dave. Who's next?
Next is going to be, that's a long spin, Catherine.
All right, Catherine, let us have it. I think you're muted, Catherine. I'm afraid.
I'm trying to be a good guest, and I end up muting myself.
That's okay.
I forget, but I don't want to be noisy in the background. So I guess my story will be, which one do I want to do? There's so many.
Yes.
Too many. I was in Appalachia. Well, should I go funny or should I go scary?
It's your world. Whatever you want.
RC.
I say go funny.
Okay.
When in doubt, always be funny.
Well, it's not that funny. But
okay, funny and scary.
I was commissioned to do this shoot, and the designer, I had heard rumors about him, but I didn't really know what it would be like to be on set with him before I got there. And I walked in, and the shot, the design, if you will, that I was supposed to take was an atrocity. I mean, it was horrible. And everyone he had maybe 10 or 15 vendors there. They were all basically looking at me like, what are we going to do? What did he create? This is awful. Like everyone knew it in the room except for him. And, I'm supposed to make this look good, which is not easy when it looks bad in the first place. So I'm looking at the shot and thinking like, how am I going to make this look good? What can I do to sort of, maybe the lighting will make it look good. Maybe I could do something. So I'm trying to figure it out, and we're doing test shots and they look like crap because I'm shooting something that looks like crap. And then he starts to get all involved and asking for things like, he wanted the background in focus, which was windows at noon with a beach. So imagine how bright it is. He wanted that to be visible, so the exposure to capture the outside. But then he also wanted the foreground to show a fireplace with candles. So we started explaining to him, like, this is not, we would need to like do neutral density filters on the window. Like there's a certain level with the gear and the team we have where our limits are tapped out. And he got attitude and he was mean, and this isn't funny actually. It was awful. It was really horrible. I should have told my scary story. But anyway, it was funny at the time when I think about it, looking back, because it's really hard when you're shooting something, when someone's expectations are not grounded, and then the subject matter is horrible on top of that. And yeah, that's my story.
Okay.
That sums it up. That was a doozy. I got no reactions. Everyone's asleep.
No, I'm watching.
I bet the wheel.
Everyone's reacting. I don't think we want to interrupt.
I think the wheel will mysteriously avoid me for the rest of the evening.
No, you never know. With the wheel of horror, will show us. Okay, spin it, Dave. Hey, Dave. By the way, if it lands on somebody that has already spoken their second story, we'll go to the nearest person to the right that has not given their second story. But in this case, it has not, because it landed on
Nicole
Young.
Okay. You know, actually,
show hand.
I have to give credit to the reminding of this story from RC, because he just threw something in the chat room that reminded me of this. When I really started in my, I guess, when I started calling myself a photographer, which, you know, I think for a lot of people it takes a while before you can say I'm a photographer. I was shooting on Nikons.
Says that now.
What's that?
So no, everybody says that now. Just
okay. Well, back in the day, but I used to shoot on a Nikon, and I shot with a Nikon D200 for a very long time, which the ISO, you know, can only go to 1600. It has a lot of limited capabilities. You can do a lot with the camera, but I do stock photography, and with stock photography, the inspection process is really meticulous, and the images, you know, they go through it, and they have to be clean, and they can't have a lot of noise. So, you know, with all that, so you have all that background there. I did a stock shoot with a local model. She wanted some portfolio pictures for a commercial style of shooting. So we did a bunch of her sitting around with the phone and just very clean stock photos. And as I was driving home, because it was about an hour drive from where I was living, I was driving home, and like halfway through, somehow that big light bulb went on my head going, oh my God, I completely forgot to change my ISO. It was at 1600 the entire time. So I had an entire shoot at 1600, ISO 1600 on a Nikon D200. I was like, these photos are completely garbage. There's no way they're going to make it through the inspection process on iStock. And, but it has a happy ending. So I ended up editing all the photos using like Noise Ninja or something, and every single one of them made it up through the inspection process. But I think a lot of people have done that, you know, where we photograph something, and I do most of my stuff at really low ISOs, like 100. Maybe I'll push it to 400 depending on the circumstances. But, you know, we want it to be low ISO, it's low grain as possible, and then it's, you know, it's like, oh crap.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. But so you like Noise Ninja, huh? I use what's that other one? Is it made by Image Ready? I'll think of it in a minute. But you like Noise Ninja?
I haven't actually used it in a long time. I think it kind of got killed when I updated one of my. I can't remember why. I may have switched from PC to Mac. No, it was after that. I think it's just for an update to like Lion or something. I can't remember what the time frame was, and I couldn't use it any longer. I used Noiseware Professional. It's great. I think I like it better. Yeah.
Noiseware was awesome, but they never updated to. I don't know. It depends on the gearhead, but they never updated to 64-bit on the Mac, which is
64-bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just with me from a CS5 and a Lightroom standpoint, I don't think that I've ever, as much as I used to use like Noise Ninja and Noiseware and things like that, just luminosity noise reduction in Lightroom and in Photoshop have just been more than enough. I'm like, these days, when they showed, I mean, we spent a lot of time playing in Photoshop. When they turned around and they said, hey, take a look at this noise removal in Photoshop, I bet that there was just a collective from all these companies when they came out with that. It's just,
Yeah.
Noise reduction and Lightroom, and there's really no point for you to get another piece of software at this point. Sharpening,
I haven't felt the need of using anything.
I always go somewhere else. But
Yeah.
noise reduction, using Lightroom, using Photoshop, you don't really need anything else.
Well,
cameras these days are good enough too, where you don't always need to even reduce the noise. It either looks like green or you're just okay with it.
And Lightroom 4, they're bringing the noise reduction brush, the adjustment brush, so that right there. I mean, that was my biggest complaint with Lightroom 3 was it was a global noise reduction. So to be able to draw where you want the noise reduction is nice.
Yeah, I think if you do everything in Lightroom, then noise reduction there is just, it's amazing. But I still do so much of it in Photoshop because I take the result of my HDR process and I bring that in as a layer. And that's always noisy as all get out. And then even when I go through and repair the my JPEG that comes out of Photomatix or whatever with layers, I still have noise problems. So I can't do it in light. It's too late. It's the cow's out of the barn. So I have to do the noise reduction later in Photoshop. That's why I do.
Wait, do you just open up the image in Photoshop and then run a plugin?
Yeah.
Well, see, if you opened it up in Photoshop, like if you did a file open in Photoshop, highlighted the picture, and then instead of just hitting open, hit the drop down, and here, I'll show you this real quick.
Well, I know what you mean, but I think what
you save yourself
maybe
a step,
what I didn't fully say is that I've got many different things I do in Photoshop with layers and different filters, that sort of thing. And Noiseware is just one of the many filters that I run on it towards the end. So it's part of the filtering workflow that I do in Photoshop.
Could I ask everyone that we're all kind of obsessed with noise, and when I'm testing cameras, it's one of the first things that I test, what the noise level's like, what's the noise reduction like, what's it like at different ISOs. But have you ever had a client come back to you and say, love the photo, but too noisy?
Well, only the noise police say that, and I ignore the noise police.
Is it actually an issue for paying clients? Are they actually that bothered, or is it just us?
It happens to Nicole, right, Nicole?
Well, with stock photography, I don't deal directly with clients, but I deal with the company, with iStock, and they have inspectors, and they are more lenient on the noise levels. I think obviously they don't want something that's supposed to be a very clean production shot, which was what I was doing in my horror story. It should have been noise free. There's no reason for it to have any noise. More artistic noise or something where if the photo could not have been created without any noise, then, or without not adding noise, then yeah, you should create the photo. And you're still going to get stuff through the inspection process. They want their photos to be really clean and just very usable. And, they just want high quality images. Really, they have a really good team of inspectors over there that keep that quality level really high.
I'm trying to remember who it was that said it, that Scott, you might be able to help me with this, but somebody had said, you know what, if they're paying attention to your noise, then you miss the shot.
Yeah, someone said that on the chat stream.
If you try to do a shot and all you have is the noise, then you miss the picture.
Hey, RC, will you go ahead and show that trick you were about to show me? Dirk Heindorfer wanted you to still show the trick.
All right, let me find a shot in here so that you can
take an image and doing noise reduction on it with your little trick.
All right, so let's just say, let me go ahead and I'm just going to minimize some windows here so that you can see it. And
they're saying Rick Salmon on the chat, RC.
Yes, okay, yeah, it was Rick. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm just going to grab a TIFF image just for the sake of grabbing a TIFF image. All my stuff is on removable drive, so I'm just kind of moving stuff very quickly over here. All right. And by very quickly, I mean I'm going to move 586. What? All right. I guess it's a 568 megabyte file. What the hell is that?
You got a big TIFF. Maybe it still has layers in it.
TIFF thing.
Yeah, it's a possibility. But it'll take less than a minute. But so the deal with it is just when you're working in Photoshop, right? You click on File, you click on Open. Everybody can see this, right?
Yes.
All right. So and you can actually do this with any image. I'm gonna just grab a picture over here. I'll go to horror. Right. As soon as you highlight a picture, you'll see that it says enable all readable documents and it has a formatted JPEG. If you click on the drop down here and you select camera raw from the drop down list, and then you click on open, it'll automatically open it up in Camera Raw rather than opening it up in Photoshop. But you have to be very specific about how you do it. Like if you come over here and then you go and you switch this to Camera Raw, then highlight something, it'll automatically switch the format back. So what you do is find something you want, click on it, then switch it over to Camera Raw, then click on open. Then that way, once you have that there, that gives you the option to come over here and then use the luminance noise reduction, which isn't available to you inside of CS5. So what you would do is you would just do any kind of luminance noise reduction here. And then you could technically either open this as an image, or if you hold down the shift key, you can open this as a smart object, then do a duplicate and then grab that. So for anybody who doesn't have like noise reduction and you just want to do it straight out of Photoshop CS5, you could technically just open the object and inside of here, go to layers, do a right click, make this a new smart object via copy, double click on this one, and then take this noise reduction and bring this down. So then this would be your original. This would be the one that's smoother. And then you would just grab a mask and then mask in the areas that you want. So they have really, really good noise reduction. So it's a lot of the times it's like, may as well just use those features. I mean, they're there and you can save the money that you're going to use for that for other plugins that you're going to need.
It's true. It's a good point.
Nice tip.
Well said, RC. You're an educator. You should get a job at Kelby Media or something.
I would hire him in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Give that guy a raise. Okay. Spin the wheel of horror.
Here we go.
Number 3. Nicole. Okay, wait.
Nicole, so we skip her to Brian.
Skip her. To who?
Brian. He's next.
Brian?
Yeah, you wanted to go to the right.
Oh,
clockwise.
Clockwise. Okay, yeah. I meant right in order of boxes. we have no system here. But
Chaos.
A random system is as good as any system that's based on a random system. So, Brian, go.
This story was more just it was back when I was doing commercial work before I was with On One, and it's one of those things where you don't know what's happening until you get called out, and it was a total innocent thing. But I was shooting for the Intercontinental Boston. It's a hotel, beautiful exterior, beautiful interior, and they had this room that was called the Champagne Room, and they asked me to shoot it. I go in and working with their marketing person. They had their own little art director with me. And we're shooting, and I was doing tethering directly to the computer. I get some brackets because it was, kind of similar situation to what Catherine was saying. They wanted to have a lot of the brightest lights exposed, and it was overall a very dark room to begin with as well. So single exposures wouldn't work, and exposure blending wasn't going to work either. So it had to be tone mapping. And the thing that I didn't realize as we were processing, and here I have these two people looking over me, and I hear them just kind of chatting, and it was got me pause for concern. And I turn around, and I don't know how many people know, but I'm actually red-green colorblind. I really can't see any shade of red, and it was one of those things where it didn't really even cross my mind. It's something that you live with all your life, whatever it is that you have, and the colors must have been so. Even though I did my white balance, I created a custom color profile with my color checker passport. I did everything by the books, but when you can't really tell what the colors are in front of you, I apparently was butchering it, and there was a model there as well that we masked in the original skin, and her skin tone was off totally. So that was one of those horror stories where usually I'll work. Back then I would work with, or after that job, I would work with, I'd hire someone like a consultant to make sure that the colors were on as well. But that was one of the most, next to screaming like a little schoolgirl in that urban exploration shot, that was one of the most embarrassing, horrific things, because you really can't, I mean, Trey, I think maybe you could to some degree relate, but it's like you can't really. It happened to me in my driver's test too in Brooklyn, where the guy told me to make a broken K-turn by a red car, and I drove right past it. I didn't even realize it. I didn't put two and two together to even tell him that I can't see red, and he thought I was, playing around with him. So that was an unfortunate situation. It was a great job. It was a lot of fun. They were really, afterwards, they were really understanding, but sitting there and it's like, oh man, the cold beads of sweat go down. The shot was great. Everything was great, but the colors were atrocious. So they ended up helping me out with that part.
You could have just said it's your own special style of cross-processing.
Yeah, what are you talking about? I intended
this is a new thing. Sure, her skin's a little green. Okay.
Yeah.
Dave, spin us up.
Ding, ding, ding.
This thing always spins in a different direction.
So
Brian is gone. Jeremy, you are up.
All right. So about 3 years ago, every photographer has their dream gig. And I had my dream gig, and that was shooting the advertising for the show Lost. Because about 3 years ago, that was the biggest thing on TV, and everybody I know that was watching it, and I had started watching it. And so I really wanted to
Every time I talk to you, I find out something amazing that you did that you've just kind of left out of casual conversations like this.
Well,
sorry, go on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
You haven't heard the horror story of it yet.
Okay.
So my favorite show is Lost. I'd always wanted to shoot it, and that was like my dream gig. And so a call came, and it was actually a call to shoot something else. It was a call to shoot a movie poster, which I'd always wanted to do movie posters too. And so I got the call to do the movie poster, and I was super excited about it. And then a week later, I got the call to freaking shoot Lost from ABC. And usually with TV shows, they put 5 to 8 photographers on hold, and then they go down through the chain, and finally they vote and pick their one photographer. Well, they had already done that. I was already the photographer to shoot Lost. Done deal. I was going to go to Hawaii, spend several days shooting the cast. Well, my agent had to turn it down because it was booked on the same day as this other movie poster. And so I was really depressed, really sad, really whatever. But I was like, still, the silver lining is I get to go do this movie poster. Well, the movie happens to be Crazy Heart with Maggie Gyllenhaal and Jeff Bridges and Robert Duvall and Colin Farrell. And so we turned down Lost. So we go out to Santa Fe to shoot this movie poster for Crazy Heart. And you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We set up for like 2 days. We pre-light. We do all this stuff. We're getting ready for the big shoot. So the shoot starts. I get Maggie Gyllenhaal. I'm like working with her. I get like 5 minutes with her. And then she's like, okay, I got to run to keep filming, but I'll be back. I'm like, okay, cool. And then so next up is Jeff Bridges. He's like 100 feet from us, like right next to set filming. And he decides that he's just in a bad mood and decides he doesn't want to shoot that day. He's being a diva. So, I mean, I literally needed him for 2 seconds to get this one shot that we really needed. But he refuses. He doesn't want to shoot. And then it turns out that Robert Duvall had a day off that day, so he wasn't around. I don't know why they didn't figure all this out beforehand. Basically, Colin Farrell had a contractual issue. Basically, the entire Crazy Heart shoot fell through, canceled. Meanwhile, I could have been in Hawaii shooting Lost. So
that sucks.
I lost both jobs on the same day. Both of them could have been like that next level in my career, and they both fell through in the same day.
Well, that sucks. But over in chat, I see somewhat of a revelation. Nicole, do you have something to tell us that has hitherto been covered up?
I was an extra on an episode of Lost when I lived in Hawaii.
Really?
Yes. So you can photograph me, and and then your life will be complete.
There you go. Perfect.
What was the episode about?
It was an episode. It was when they were. Spoiler alert! If you've never seen Lost, season 4 is where they're doing the flash forwards, and it's when Kate was going through her trial, and I was a security guard who opened a door. I'm very featured. You really see me. It's not like I'm like a little tiny speck in the crowd. But yeah, season 4, episode 4, if anyone is interested, see me on Lost.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, I watched all
Nicole,
of
you
them.
totally have a photo of you. You totally have a photo, a screen grab from it, don't you?
Oh,
Come on,
you know,
show it.
I'll find one and then I'll post it. I'll show it. I'll find
Yeah,
one.
you gotta
It's on
share
my
it with
Facebook
us.
page or something.
Okay, spin the wheel of horror.
Okay. RC.
RC.
Winner.
Oh, all right. So I have a nerdy story. So I was before I came here to work doing Photoshop stuff. I was an IT manager. Basically, I managed a bunch of different people at a software company doing e-commerce installations for online. So think like Peapod, like online supermarkets. So we would go to a supermarket chain, a big supermarket chain, like in Portland. We did New Seasons Market. In New York, we did Walgreens. So we do these really, really big spots, and we'd have to go, and I'd have to set up 3 to 5 photography stations to be able to do product photography. We'd show up to, let's say, Walgreens, and we'd say, all right, Walgreens, we need to take pictures of your stuff. So imagine an entire supermarket. You walk into a supermarket and you go, you see all of this stuff here? We need to make pictures of this, everything, every single bit. And all of the stuff needed to be shot on a white background. And at the same time, you had to do, like deli and all of those kinds of things. So you had to set up all of these shoots. So it was my job to kind of sit there and just photographically figure all of this stuff out. So I'd go, all right, well, we need 5 photography stations at different areas here, different supermarkets. And we get a database catalog of like 20,000 images, 25,000 images, 30,000 images. And we'd have to shoot it. So that was one of the things we signed up for. So we'd sit, and I had a job that was running in one of these places. I won't say which because the client's probably still around. But at one point or another, probably 3.5 months into the shoot, we had 3 photographers working on this one job. And I get back to the client site, and I'm like, all right, guys, how you guys doing on this thing? And I'm like, specifically, you need to shoot this on a white background. There has to be no discoloration. It has to be a white background. And they're probably about 20,000 images in. And I'm like, all right, where are we? Are we going to be done in 2 weeks? And they're like, we don't know. We don't know if this stuff is on a white background or not. And I'm like, what do you mean we don't know? It's like, well, it either is or isn't. I was like, was it white? And it's like, well, it looked white. And I'm like, no, not looked white. It needs to be completely white because it's going to go on a white website. If you put it up on a website with a color, it just doesn't look right. So I'm screwed. I'm sitting there, and not only it's not like one folder, 20,000 images. It's like 4,000 folders with all these different images and all these different sizes and things like that. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I have no idea as to what to do. And I'm like, but I'm not going to deal with it. I'm like, I'm not going to deal with it right now. I'm just going to leave. And I was scheduled to go to Photoshop World. This was when I was an attendee. I just went to kind of hide from work. And I was like, I'm going to go to Photoshop World. I'm going to go hang out. And it was actually, Scott, one of the first times that I had met you when we went out with Matt in the Hummer.
Yeah.
So we went out in the Hummer, which I thought was funny because so I go there and I'm like, I'm not dealing with this right now. We'll find people, we'll hire people to literally go through one by one and go, is this work? Yes. Does this work? Yes. And I left and I went to Vegas, and I'm sitting in Vegas and I'm like, well, I got to figure this out. And I ran into a guy named Jeff Tranberry, who's a big scripting guy for Adobe. And I was like, you know what? I have an idea. And I'm sitting, and all of a sudden, it's like just sitting with Tranberry and sitting with a couple of other people, I get this idea. And I'm like, dude, I could script this entire thing. In Photoshop, not only do you have actions, but you can actually, like, if you know, VB script, or if you know JavaScript, you can actually code something, a complex script. And I'm like, this is great. This is really cool. I got it. And I remember the first person that I told was Matt. And we were driving to go get something at midnight. And I'm like, Matt, I have this idea. All right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a script that's going to turn around, and it's going to take all of these files, and it's going to map a portion of the document to 255. And then based on the determination of that and Matt's looking at me like this. Like, he could not be any less interested in what I was saying at that point in time. And I'm like, this is really cool. And I left and I figured it out. And basically, I wrote a script that said, take a look at this picture. Take a look at the upper left-hand portion of the picture. Just take a selection of it. If that picture shows up as complete white, let's say 255, 255, 255, I want you to move that picture over there. And then if it doesn't do it, I want you to move that picture over there. And this is something that we were going to spend weeks doing. And I sat there and I was just like, all right, let me see if this works. We put it up on one computer. And I was like, all right, I hit the button. And sure enough, all of a sudden, the computer just started going, just spinning right through, spinning right through, spinning right through. And in about, I think it was like 8 hours, it actually finished and it sorted everything out. And I was about 30% out, but it was literally one of those things where I have all these different projects, all these different sites going at the same time. And to be out on something like that, that's a, you're behind by months and thousands of dollars. So for me, just to be able to be in an environment where I turn around and I can actually be inspired to do something nerdy, it's a very nerdy story. But at the end of the day, you know, I don't have to do sexy. I have to do what makes money and what makes it, you know, how can I return money on that? And then, you know, that this little story was able to kind of help that.
It's okay. Nerdy stories are always okay around fellow nerds. Don't worry about it. All right. Who's left? Do we know? You better spin it. I'm lost now. Speaking of lost.
So it's going to be Scott Kelby.
All right, Scott.
Alrighty, so there's parts of this story are known and parts aren't. So it has good parts and bad parts, but it's a shoot gone horribly, horribly wrong. Very, very early into the shoot. It is last year. No, excuse me. It is, yes, it's last January. I am shooting the NFC championship game for the NFL. One of these two teams is going to the Super Bowl. And I am on the 10-yard line. It's a beautiful day, crisp. It's the Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. And on the opening drive, the first quarter, I have two cameras with me. I have a 400-millimeter lens, big sucker, with a Gitzo monopod. And then my second body is a D3 with a 24-70. So on the opening drive, Green Bay is driving down the field. They get all the way to like the 7-yard line. And I'm right there, you know, literally now at the goal line. I've moved to the goal line. I'm ready to shoot. Aaron Rodgers does, fades back for like an option. Fades back for a, what did he do? I forget what the play was. But he fades back and he decides to do a keeper. And he goes running for the end zone. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching. And I'm like, oh, good, he's coming right my way. And he dives across the end zone, holding the ball out. So he's like, it's diving out. And he hits, you know. Now you got to realize when you're shooting in an NFL game, there's the field. Then a few feet back, there is a dotted white line. That's for the video guys. Then behind them is a dotted yellow line, and that's for photographers. I'm behind the dotted, you know, my line. And I see him hit the ground, and I'm trying to fire and stuff, you know, shoot. And he starts sliding towards me. I'm thinking, he's not going to make it all the way to me. Because I'm on my knees, you know, shooting. He's not going to make it here. He keeps coming, and he slams into me. Snaps my monopod in two. So I don't realize this at first. I just fall over because I just got hit by a guy and, you know, helmet and everything. He falls to the ground, and he, as it turns out, I'm still shooting. I'm like, hey, I'm okay. Because I was already on my knees. I didn't have very far to fall. So I just kind of get up. I take my 24-70, and I'm smiling like, wow, I'm right here where it happened. I'm alive. And so I'm shooting with my 24-70. And he gets up and runs off the field. And that's when I look down and see literally my monopod is in two pieces. Now, here's the problem with this. This is the opening drive of a 3.5 to 4 hour game. I've got a 400-millimeter lens. that's very heavy. It's not a handheld lens. Where am I going to find a monopod? It's not like anybody's got monopod. Oh, I got one here, buddy. Try my monopod. So here's good and bad came out of it. First off, while we're looking here, I'm going to just, for 1 second, I'm going to show you some pictures from it. Hold on. Because I actually have the pictures I was taking as he hit me. So I think I can find them for you really quickly. Here we go. All right. I'm going to do a screenshot here to show you. Screen share. So let's go with this right here. One more, please. Do you see it?
I see it.
All right. There's my broken monopod. Here's Aaron Rodgers crashing into me. Literally, this is him hitting me. See how far it is from the field? Then this is out of bounds. Then this is green area. I'm thinking, he's never going to make it all the way from over there sliding into me. I was wrong. See that? This is the problem. That's Aaron Rodgers, and my camera gear is on the other side of Aaron Rodgers. This is not good.
But you got it all on film, so, that's got to be somehow good.
Did he do the belt move
there's
when
good
he
parts
got
too.
up?
The good parts are coming up, but they're not quite there yet. So I have these shots as he's running away and stuff because I'm right there, and there's me on TV. Somebody took a shot of the TV. You can see the little fox thing there, and there's me still smiling, shooting. Because at this moment, I do not know my monopod is broken. I just think, hey, cool, Aaron Rodgers hit me, and I'm not dead. Now, so I wrote this whole story, and I wrote my own captions about what was really happening. And none of this actually happened. But I wrote these captions as if it was. And the name of my post was, Aaron Rodgers owes me a new monopod. And so I wrote some captions. Let me show you the ones. I said, right here, it says, and then I see it. The bottom half of my monopod is gone, ripped off at the stem. So I'm right in front of Rodgers, and I yell, hey, Rodgers, you broke my monopod. And he looks at me, and I guess he sees my Bears earmuffs and says, too bad, Bears fan. And I said, hey, you're buying me a new monopod. And he looks at me and says, yeah, right. And I'm like, yeah, right. We'll see, pretty boy. So I make up all these things that he's saying. And, it was basically a pretty funny story and completely made up. So the good news is two things. Number one, that story got picked up by Sports Illustrated, Sporting News, every big sporting website. It ran everywhere. So that was kind of good. Number two was both Really Right Stuff and Gitzo gave me brand new replacement monopods. Whoa. So the good parts of it are I got my monopods replaced by both Really Right Stuff, which gave me, and they replaced them with like really, really, real big, heavy ones like that he would not be able to break. And the other good news was I got a lot of, of publicity out of it because I never intended for any of that. But the bad news was I really didn't get any great shots from this. The biggest game I've ever shot, except for until today, I had credentials to shoot the Super Bowl. And I got the call that my credential had been pulled. So
that sucks.
And you know where I'm going to be already? Just outside of Indianapolis.
Oh.
I was going to be right there. And a friend of mine had arranged the whole thing. Everything was done. You had to pass. And while I'm in my seminar today, I see my phone going off. And it's from him. And I'm thinking, he's calling to tell me it's a done deal. So as soon as I got on lunch break, I listened to my voicemail. Sorry.
Oh, that's too bad.
I will be watching the Super Bowl along with everyone.
Well,
Scott,
you can aim your
however,
400 millimeter at the TV.
Scott, you have, however, developed a fantastic new test for tripods and monopods. I think we should talk about this after the show. I'd like to publish some reviews where we will arrange for some football players to propel themselves at you at high velocity and see what survives.
Oh, they do it quite often, and so it shouldn't be a problem.
I could just Gordon. I could just see it right now. I could be like, all right, well, Sunpack just made a new tripod, and it was able to withstand the chubby JV guy, but when it moved into the quarterback,
I wanted to get off the screen share here.
All right. Well, no need to spin the Wheel of Horror again. I'll tell my story, but then right after this, the Wheel of Horror becomes the Wheel of Discovery, and we will show different people that we found on Google+. Okay, so here's my story. I'll do another China story because it was close by, and this is kind of a sad story. I'm a pretty positive, optimistic guy. I'm pretty happy-go-lucky, and takes a lot to get me riled up or make me sad or whatever. But this did make me quite sad. So I had planned this trip for a long time. I really wanted to go to a place called Zhangjiajie. It's in another very remote part of China. It takes many plane flights and car trips to get to this place. And I really wanted a sunrise shot here. And when you're thinking about a shot for a very, very long time, you really get kind of amped up for it, and you plan it all out like a small military campaign. All the ins and outs and logistics you figure out ahead of time. And because of some plane troubles and so on and so forth, I only had a day there. Okay, I don't really worry about those. I'm quite a control freak, except when I fly places, I kind of give it up to the airplane gods, and whatever happens, happens. And I'm generally okay with that. But what really frustrates me is if I cannot get to a certain location at a certain time because of incompetence. It just drives me nuts. So I get to this place in Zhangjiajie, and I have a local guide there, okay, to show me around. And I talk to him the night I arrive, and I say, all right, tomorrow I've got to shoot the sunrise. I know it's a national park that you have to get through sort of a gate to get into the national park. I know that's the case. And I make it clear that I want to be there, as soon as possible because I want to get this morning shot. He says, don't worry, meet me downstairs at 6:30 and we'll go. It was very clear. So anyway, I meet him downstairs at 6:30, and then we go to the front of the entrance to this national park. And there is this monstrous line there of just, there's this sea of Chinese people. No one can line up like Chinese people. And it's this kind of line that just sucks all the life out of your soul, because you just have this realization like, oh my God, I've got to stand in this line and there's no way around it. And so I kind of resigned myself to standing in the line. And so we're in this line. I'm giving my guide the evil eye. I'm really kind of upset because I made it clear to him that we had to get there. I said, look, I would have slept out here last night so that we're first. I would have gladly got downstairs another hour, an hour and a half. And he goes, no, you'll have plenty of time. You'll have blue sky. I'm like, no, blue sky. It's not what I want. He goes, no, blue sky is very good. I said, no, it's not good. So I'm stuck in this line, and we start to go up kind of the side of this hill. I'll show you. Let me share a picture here of what this place looks like. This is one I've been working on. So let me unshare now that you get the idea. So we start to go up. We go up a different part, not that particular one. We're in a different part of the park. And then once you get to the top, you take a tram or something. The line is just going so slow. I'm really just seething inside. I'm so angry. And then I know this is probably wrong, but part of me is thinking, I should really be first in this line because I'm here to make art. I'm here to make beautiful things. And sure, everyone else here, they're all, important or whatever, but, just let them wait a collective 15 seconds while I go up to the front of the line, and I can make millions of people happy with this photo I'm going to take, and they'll only be delayed 15 seconds. And I know it's not very egalitarian of me, but this is what I was thinking. I was really justifying this move I was about to make, which I then made. So I took my guide and I said, look, see that other side over there? There's an empty side of the stairs. That's where people came down, right? It was totally empty because it was the morning. Everyone was going up. I said, we're going over there. We're going to go up the down. So I convinced him to jump over. We start booking up these stairs, and everyone's looking at us because nobody breaks the rules in China. That's not a place to break the rules. So we go up, and about 3/4 of the way up, there are these two military guys. All right. I mean, these are like real Chinese, authentic military guys. They're not like, low rent Chinese shopping mall rent-a-cop types. These are like hardcore military types. And they grab my guy, right? And they say, "What are you doing?" I think this is what they're saying. I only speak a little bit of Chinese. I got the gist of it from their conversation, though. And he goes, "No, I'm an official guide." And he pulls out his badge and he shows them that he's an official guide. And then they start trying to take the guide little ID tag from him. And then I start trying to reason with these guys, which isn't working because, they don't speak English. It's starting to spiral out of control, and they're trying to take his badge, and they're reaching for their weaponry, and this whole thing is escalating out of control. I thought, this is a bad situation. I need to figure out how to diffuse it. So I started to pull him back a little bit, my guide back, and try to go back down the stairs, and they're kind of pursuing us, and it's getting really, really ugly. And I thought, oh man, this is bad. I don't want my guide to go to some sort of Chinese state prison facility. I don't want to go to Chinese state prison facility. So I finally extricated him out of the situation. We got back down. They let us go. I kind of claimed, white man ignorance. And then we went back down and got back in line, and with everybody else. And I was just sad and angry and every possible negative emotion I had. And we finally got up there about 2 hours later. It was kind of like the middle of the morning, and washed out blue skies. Just awful. And he goes, look, it's blue skies. I said, no, you do not understand. So I just put on my earphones. I listened to music. I just tuned them out for a while. And when you're really sad like that, you kind of have to go into your man cave and just stay there alone for a while until you come out of it in a better mood. And I was there for a long time. There's a nice story that happened later in the day. I won't go into it now because I took too much time, but I'll save that for another time. It kind of, everything came back later that evening in sort of a weird way. So that's the end of my story. And now we will convert the wheel into the wheel of discovery.
You see how much different it looks?
Discovery.
It's completely different.
It looks somehow brighter and more positive.
Yes,
yes, it is.
completely different.
Yes.
Hey Trey, I'm gonna have to.
All right,
hey, Trey, I'm gonna have to run to help my kid and help my wife with my kids. So would y'all mind if I went first?
No, please go ahead.
So I don't know how I found this person, but it is the most fascinating person to follow on Google+. They're not a photographer, but they upload galleries of other photographers and artists. And I am inspired every single day by this user. Do any of y'all have any idea who I'm talking about?
I think I know who you're talking about.
Who? See if you can guess.
It's an Indian gentleman, right?
No, it's a lady.
Oh.
I think she was the one that went with you guys, Trey, on New Year's, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I can't think of her name. Anyway, please.
On New Year's. Oh, you mean Kimberly?
Yes.
Shoemaker? No, he's not going to say Kimberly Shoemaker.
Guess. No, that's not who I'm talking about. Like I said, she only uploads galleries of other artists, and so you'll have to go on her album page and view all albums to see why I'm so inspired. But her name is Isabel Sousa Silva. So ISABEL SOUSA SILVA.
Okay, and also for everyone watching, I will plus link to everybody later when I share the video, so everyone can follow these and circle these. Can you share your screen to show us what it looks like?
It's very NSFW, just FYI.
Good.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's definitely some nudity in some of her albums, but for the majority, I mean, it's like a walking into a fine art museum. I mean, all the albums that she uploads are really, really, really inspiring. I just find myself thinking about what a terrible artist I am because her galleries are so amazing. And so that's definitely my share. I'm by myself continually amazed by what she's put. It's almost like my goal now to get on her Google Plus page because the art is so outstanding.
Cool, good recommendation. Well, I'll link her up so everyone can circle her and get depressed.
Yes, exactly.
It's probably like a Go ahead, you can leave. Thanks for coming, Jeremy, very much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go help my wife with the kids, and so thank y'all for having me. This has been fun. Enjoyed the stories.
Sure. Thank you. See you next time, dude.
All right, sounds good.
Bye, Jeremy.
See you, Jeremy.
Bye. Okay. Spin us up, Dave. Who we have?
Nicole.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I'll go ahead and do a screen share here. All right. So y'all see that?
Yes.
This is my pick. I don't remember how I found her. I think I was just searching through photos and looking at textured images, and I saw her work in this photo in particular, and I think I just really enjoyed it. It's very, is her, by the way, her name's Isabelle LaFrance. Very clean, minimalistic. I picked another photo of hers that I really enjoyed. It's just very soft and simple, and it just has this quality that I really like about it. So
it is nice. Every now and then, I feel like my pictures are so busy when I see stuff like that. I've discovered a few people like that too. I thought, oh, it's so simple.
Yeah. So that's, there are a few others in here that, like this is another one that I really particularly like. It's just so simple. It's very subtle. It's almost like a simple painting where the colors just, flow together, and there's just one element right there, and it's gorgeous. So yeah, I'll go back to her profile page if anyone wants to check her out and follow her.
Cool. Thank you very much. Spin us up, Dave. Who's next?
All right, we're going to say Gordon because he's got to leave soon.
Okay, Gordon. Let us have it.
Cool. I would like to share Nori Sakamoto with you. He is a Aurora photographer.
Oh, that's very difficult.
It sure is. His these are some of his many pictures. I thought I did have one picked that I'll show you in just a second, but I thought I'd let you have a look at a variety of them here. I found a really great circle that people were sharing. This was a few months ago. It was a bunch of astrophotographers and long exposure photographers. And there's some really, really beautiful stuff being posted on Google Plus of these. And I'm a real sucker for nice Aurora shots, and Nori does some really great ones here. I think most of them are taken actually in North America, like top of Alaska and Canada, those kind of places. And I've attempted to do this sort of thing myself once, and the best I came out of it was almost with frostbite on my fingers. It was it's so darn cold. If you want to see this stuff, you have to let me find a picture. Look, here's a nice one. Do you see this one?
Yeah, that is nice. Wow.
Yeah. Now you can see from the curvature of the horizon that this is obviously taken with an extremely wide-angle lens, some sort of fisheye lens, but it is quite technically hard to take these photos. The temperature is a real issue. I tried it in northern Norway with a great Aurora photographer called Kjetil Skogli, and he basically took the pictures for me. He said, point your camera here, use these settings. And I had these thick gloves on, and I couldn't turn the dials on my camera properly, so I took the gloves off, and he gave me a kind of nervous look, and I thought, oh, come on, how bad can it be? And literally a few seconds later, I thought, this is not good. This is really not good. I'm beginning to feel my fingers dropping off here. So when you look at these pictures, which are often very long exposures, do think of the photographer's discomfort while they're doing this, because it really is quite considerable effort and hardship that they're going through at the time. So that's who I wanted to share with you. I hope you like that.
That is a good one. Hey, what can I ask you a dumb question? Do they have Aurora Borealis over the South Pole too?
They do. They call it Aurora Australis. So you've got to say it, Aurora Australis.
I don't see many of those pictures though. Why not? Why are they always from the north?
Well, you've got to remember that obviously there's much more landmass in the northern hemisphere. So there's many more places where you can physically view it, and you can also get very close to the pole in the northern hemisphere. I mean, you could go up to the top of Norway and be at 65 degrees north, 70 degrees north if you're in Svalbard and places like that. Whereas in the southern hemisphere, there's not many places that are really, really, really south. So you've got to wait for a big magnetic storm. There's an aurora photographer in Queenstown who does, just pointing out the window to Queenstown. There's an aurora photographer here who does some really good shots. Also, interestingly, Japanese. Maybe it's a Japanese thing that they like to follow this. So you can see it, but if you want to see like those real spectacular bright colors and massive storms, you've got to get close to the pole. And down here, you'd be on a boat. So your long exposures are going to be pretty tricky.
Yeah, cool.
And with that, I must bid you a Jew or a Jer or a jar or anything. I must bid you.
All right, Sigourney, thank you.
All farewell. It's been a pleasure seeing you all. As always, it's great fun. I've got to post a news story in a few minutes, so if any of you are interested in any kind of news after the hangout, check out camelabs.com. That's my advert. I'm off. See you, everyone.
Yes,
Thanks for
we're
having
excited.
me.
Bye,
Okay,
Gordon.
thanks, Gordon. Bye.
Bye.
All right, Dave.
All right.
Who is coming up? This is exciting.
RC Concepcion.
Okay, give us your find.
Yeah, so I have, I was trying to go between a person who I find visually inspiring and then go between somebody who I just love because they share other people. So two people that I'll talk about here real quick. Let's see. The first one that I'll share is Dean Bradshaw. Dean is a commercial photographer based, I think he's out in San Diego. And he does a lot of it. The best way that I can explain it, it's almost kind of like commercial Dave Hill-ish kind of work, but it has a very, very cool kind of like Southern California vibe to it. So all of his colors are very, very pastel-y and just really, really playful photography. He's got some compositing that he does. That's his girlfriend. It's just got really, really interesting work. His lighting is really, really nice. The post-processing on it looks really, really cool. So it's a really nice commercial photographer that's out there and probably a phenomenal guy to check out. Really, really nice guy to talk to too. So I think Dean's a great guy to be able to do that. And cool. The guy that I usually go to listen to really, really cool things is Ibarian X. Ibarian X Perello is a photographer, but he also interviews people. He has this podcast called The Candid Frame. And if you want to hear some awesome interviews with people, Ibarian X is kind of like that Larry King guy. He's got a phenomenal voice, and he really does do a really, really good job at just interviewing photographers and getting people on there. So those would be my two shares for people that you should check out.
All right. Thank you, RC. Good ones. Next, Dave, who do we have?
Next up,
beep, 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 beep. Nicole.
No, she went, so it would be Brian.
Brian.
Cool. Let me just share my screen.
All right. Can't wait to see who you found.
There we go. So
wow, it's colorful.
Yeah, this dude, I just actually found him the other day, and the reason why I'm looking for people who inspire me, especially who shoot around the Pacific Northwest now, all these landscapes, these beautiful landscapes. And this guy, his name is Ryan Dyer, and he doesn't have that much right now. And also, unfortunately, the images aren't as higher resolution as I would prefer. But, when you do look at them, this is the kind of landscape photography that always makes me just drop my jaw because it's beautifully executed, but he still maintains this ethereal kind of feel to it. There's something almost otherworldly, like this is a real place, but it's also not a real place. And so that's the kind of stuff that I look for. And so when I came across his site, I was like, I almost instantly knew this is the person who I'd like to promote. It's just, it's tremendous. It's the kind of stuff where I look at it and I say, this is what I want to shoot. I want to be able to shoot like this. And that's a really special thing for someone to, get that illicit response out of. So That's Brian Dyer. He's a pretty funny dude too if you read his commentaries. So that's a bonus to me.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, we only have 3 left. Let's just keep going. How about you, Catherine? Oops, you're muted again, I think.
Okay, I'll get better at this.
Okay.
So
I think you have a big advantage over all of us because you've been talking to a lot of Google Plus people for your other show. So you've probably seen a lot of talent.
I know it was hard to pick someone, but I ended up picking someone that is inspiring to me for his images, but also for his approach. And let's see, is it sharing or is it not sharing?
Not yet.
Oh, here we go. This should share now.
Yes.
I don't want to mispronounce his name. It's Mihailo Radichevek.
Yes.
Do you know how to pronounce it, Trey? Do you know who I'm talking about?
No, I think that's pretty close.
It's anyway. Mihailo Radichevek. Anyhow, he's not a photographer professionally. He loves shooting people. And when I look through his portraits, there's a certain sense of him in them. And what I mean by that is he's very personable and he's very open and humble and kind. And I see that and reflected in his portraits. I see people sort of letting go. And for not having a career in photography or much history, it's amazing to me, sort of the personal zone that people let him in. And so he is my, he is my pick.
All right, good one. Scott, who do you have for us?
I've got 2. One of them's kind of well known, and one probably isn't as much, but I hope will be more well known. So let me go to.
Good, you can make someone a star here.
Well, all right. I'll start with the one to make a star. Here we go. All right. So let me share the window here. You guys see it?
Yes.
We know him.
All right. So if you like concert photography, my assistant, Brad Moore, is quite a concert photographer. He's very, very good, and he gets some really interesting things. So I know it's a little self-serving because he's my assistant, but he's a very good photographer, and he's getting better all the time. He shoots all the big names. You can see he shot everybody from Paul McCartney to Santana to, the new. I want to zoom in on one of his shots here. He's got some really cool stuff. He's very, very talented. And hasn't been doing it very long, but he shoots for Sound Spike, and he's got some really cool stuff.
Great lighting. Use of light.
Yeah,
that's really good stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Jeez.
He really does have some really different stuff too. So anyway, but so Brad Moore, if you check, all right. The other one is more well known, and he's got some really cool stuff. Douglas Saunders. Can you guys see that one?
Yes.
All right. So Douglas is kind of reminds me of a guy that RC was talking to about, who I also follow. But he's got these amazing composites and stuff. I'll show you this one. So he's got wild stuff. He works with a retoucher named Justin Pagula, if I'm saying that correctly. And the two of them together, he does the shooting and Justin does the retouching. And they really come up with some amazing stuff. So, and he posts pretty regularly. He's got some really cool stuff. So those are 2 that I think are kind of cool. Douglas Saunders, Sonders, and Brad Moore, a man barely alive.
Great, thanks. That's I had Brad circled, I think, but not Douglas. And that might be sort of I'm going to share a guy that I think everyone probably already has circled, but if you don't, you must circle him, because every now and then I find people that I should have circled. They were just a blind spot in my circling deficit. Anyway, let me see here. I'm going to go to screen share. And then pick it. Oops, what's that? Nope. Here we go. So this guy is named Gregory Colbert. He's very famous. Not that that matters, but he is. He spoke at TED and this sort of thing, and he shoots a lot of African type stuff, but very unique. And I only have 2 images here to share. This one and this one. He also has a very nice video that he made. If you just search for Gregory Colbert, you can probably find a preview of it. But he's a great one to circle. Super unique images, and he does it differently and very much his own way. I think that's great. Okay, well, let's do answer a few questions. Just a few this time because it is awfully late. But I'd want to try to answer a few. There was one question here that I think would have been good for you, Scott. Where's my screen? Dave, do you know which question I'm talking about?
No.
No? Sorry. Okay, well, I'll answer one while I'm trying to find the other question. People keep asking, what is this thing in my hand that I twirl around? It is not a litro, by the way. People always think it's a litro, but it is not. It is it's a stamp. It's sort of a Chinese stamp that I got while I was over there, and it has my name right there in Chinese. Hey, Dave, will you send me a link to the doc? I somehow lost it. I want to make sure I get some of these questions answered. Somehow went away. There it is. Okay, so one of the questions that I think would be good for you, Scott.
Yes.
Is what do you use for very large panoramas? What's the best method you go for the whole processing part? That comes from Toby Harriman.
So I'm not exactly sure what Toby's asking. Very large panos.
Yeah. Do you use any special software to process, or do you use Photoshop?
Oh, I use Photoshop, hands down. I do a lot of panos. I do panos every time I go anywhere. I do panos, and I do. I've even done HDR panos, which are really a pain because there's a lot of shots involved.
Yes, they are a pain,
and the processing is a nightmare. But so I don't do those very often. But I shoot very large panos, 6-7 foot panos. Basically, I can give you a couple of tips. Tip number 1 is generally I like to shoot vertically with my panos. A couple of reasons. Number 1 is when you assemble a pano in Photoshop, to some extent you're going to have to do some cropping. So if you shoot vertically, number 1, you have less lens distortion. But number 2 is if you're shooting a mountain range or a cityscape or any of the typical things that you would shoot, you're unlikely to have to chop off the top of a building or something like you would when you shoot wide. So it sounds silly, but it really does help in giving you a little extra headroom for cropping. So you'll hear the pano purists say you have to shoot vertical because there's less lens distortion. I do it because of that, but also mostly because it gives me more cropping headroom. So I don't, because it's very, very heartbreaking to go to Montana and shoot this beautiful pano, and then when you stitch it together, you have to throw it away because you've chopped off the top of a mountain that was critical to the shot. So that's 1. Number 2 is, of course, the rule of thumb is just strictly to overlap your images by 20% each. Okay, so that's kind of the big one. But the best one I can give you is this. If you've ever done a pano in Photoshop, have you ever noticed that sometimes it'll look like a bow tie? Like it'll come in, like the edges will come in like this.
Yeah.
Then it goes flat. And then, so, and that was really bothered me for a long time. And so I was, when I had Brian Hughes, the product manager for Photoshop, was in our offices one day visiting, and I was talking to him about that. I said, you know what drives me nuts about panos in Photoshop is the fact that you get that bow tie effect. And he goes, oh, you want to know how to get around that? And I'm like, no. No, of course I said, yeah, I would love to. And so he said the engineer, I guess, who wrote the algorithm or something, told him this trick. He says, most people will do this. They get their camera and they shoot a pano and they swivel like this. If they're hand holding. So I hand hold most of my panos. I used to use a tripod religiously, but now it does such a good job. You don't have to.
Right.
They do this. And he says, don't do that. That's what causes the thing. He said, here's what you do. Start over here, you shoot this way. Go click, click, click. Stop and reseat your feet. Go click, click, click. Reseat yourself. Click, click, click. And reseat again. So you're not swiveling. You go a little bit, kind of face your feet forward, go a little bit more, face your feet forward, go a little bit more. So so the first time I tried, I thought, really, that seems kind of stupid. I was down in with doing a workshop with Joe McNally, and I tried it in St. Lucia. And the very first panel I tried it on, so I do I do it, and it stitches together, and it comes up on screen. And normally, instead of doing this, where it crops down and all, it fills the whole screen. And one of the students that was in the class looks over at mine and goes, oh, you did one of those 2-row panos, like where you shoot one way and then shoot the other? And I'm like, no, it's a regular pano. And he goes, where's the bow tie effect? I go, let me show you what I just learned. So and I just did another one the other day, and there was so little to crop. It was like the tiniest bit off the top and the bottom. So it sounds silly, but it really works amazingly well just to kind of reseat yourself after a few shots. I can't explain all the mathematics behind it, but boy, it really works. So
good. Well, if you can't explain it, I bet nobody else can either. So
right. I can show you better if I'm standing up, but in my hotel room, there's not much room to stand up. So
you could jump on the bed and do a little Cirque du Soleil pano move.
How do you like the lighting in my hotel room, though? It's really
it's very green.
Bad.
Yeah, it kind of gives you a sickly pallor.
Yeah, I don't really have a good camera either. I'm kind of just using my laptop's camera, but anyway, that's my pano advice. I don't know how much help that was. It kind of went probably way off what he wanted, but that's my pano story.
It's probably more than he asked for, so that's great. It's a perfect kind of answer. Here's a question from Strengths. He says, can we have a show of hands from everyone as to whether or not they have Steve Gibson's spin right? No hands. No hands. Okay, well, that should answer that. Strengths. Here we go. Let me see. Okay, this is from Lisa. She says, does anyone here use cloud backup storage rather than a physical external drive?
I do.
Any of you guys use cloud?
Nope.
No, I have like verging, over 3 terabytes of data on my Drobo. I think it would take me several years to actually back up.
I think that's the way it is with any serious photographers. You just have too much stuff.
Yeah.
Then also, the time is definitely the killer, but bottom line, and it's my own paranoid self, but who's to say that company is going to be around, from now until 10 years from now or 5, or when I need it? What happens? Mm-hmm. So investing all my eggs into one virtual I love Dropbox, Evernote, that kind of stuff. These documents that I trust, but the images, these hard assets and the collateral, that's on my Drobo. I have an offsite that GTech drive that I take to the On1 offices that I bring back every 2 weeks. But I will not use the cloud for photos.
Yeah.
I do local backup, and I back up to CrashPlan online.
CrashPlan. Yeah, I've thought about that. Catherine, what do you use? Do you use anything on the cloud, or are you all local?
I'm all local for photos, and then same thing. I use Dropbox and all that for documents. But it's just I have too much data. I just have gigabytes and gigabytes, or terabytes and terabytes. Let's say. Yeah. So.
I got one of these new Pegasus Thunderbolt drives, a 12 terabyte. Man, it is so fast. It's like having an SSD hooked in.
Yep. Yeah, I think Western Digital just announced their availability, or that they're coming out with their Thunderbolt lineup, which I'm excited for too.
Have you guys ever had any issues with your Drovos?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on my third one.
I haven't had any issues.
Don't get me wrong. They've been awesome, and I trust them. It didn't kill my data. It's just the unit itself needed to be replaced because of the fan. So disclaimer there. I love Drobo. I recommend them without a doubt. But to be totally honest, yeah, I had to have the fan replaced on 2 of them. But thankfully, all the data was intact.
Because I absolutely love my Drobo. Yeah, I've never had any problems. You have the freakouts every once in a while where when you first get it, you don't realize, or I didn't realize, when it's flashing green and it's like an amberish yellow and it's not red, and you think it's red, you think a drive or your entire thing is failing. And I had a freak out moment, but I absolutely love it. I have 2 of them and I use one of them for a backup.
Because I had a Drobo and then I was having a lot of issues with it. So then I got an internal RAID in my Mac Pro. And that I'm on my 3rd. I've had it for 6 months, and I'm on my 3rd RAID card.
Yikes!
Yeah,
so it's going really well.
Yeah,
highly recommend it.
And they're pretty pricey too. Those internal.
Well, I mean, the great thing is the warranty with Apple. They don't. It's not like they actually send them to me too, so I don't have to take it into the store. But now they're thinking it might be a logic board, but I don't know. I think the internal RAID might not be the best bet based on experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you bring up a good point. If you are going to do Drobo, without a doubt, get the Drobo Care. For me, it's paid back with dividends. And just one of those things. Anything that's has all these moving parts or manages moving parts, the extra whatever $100, it's not an option. I factored into the price because, what's the alternative? You lose your images.
Yeah. I have 4 Drobos. I don't use them anymore now that I have this Thunderbolt drive. But I had a problem with one of my Drobos. It got fixed. It was a little scary. I had to use console commands and that sort of thing. But it got working again. But I have a Drobo review page on my site, and there is a lot of hate. I don't delete bad comments, by the way, but there's a lot of hate for Drobo. People are very, very angry with Drobo that have lost data, and they're just very angry whenever I say anything positive about them in my review. So I acknowledge that there's a lot of upset people that have Drobos out there. So I do take that very seriously.
What's the main comment, Trey? What's the most reoccurring?
Well, it's just sort of general hardware failure, and then people can't get the kind of support that they want from Drobo. And I don't know, sometimes people are very unreasonable in what they want from customer support, and maybe customer support is not replacing their Drobo for free, or I don't know what their deal is. And so, I always take that with a grain of salt, but there's still a good number of people that are quite upset with.
Well, you bring up there's a good point there, Trey, is that if your Drobo is your sole repository, and that's your only backup, and even worse, your production volume, you've got bigger fish to fry here. Like the Drobo is an excellent production volume, but either have another Drobo or have another backup solution, both on-site and off-site. Sure, hard drive prices have gone up a bit with the recent floodings, but you can't put your eggs in one basket, and just because it's RAID or it's Drobo or it's this or it's that, you need to have multiple solutions. And, if you really do value the posterity of your images.
Yes, that's a good point. All right, well, we've had a great night. I want to thank everyone for your great stories. People love hearing these kind of things. I love it. I think life is about collecting stories and hearing them. So I thank you all very much. Does anyone have anything to say before we officially end the broadcast?
I'm stoked that you're involved with Twit. I think it's awesome.
Oh, well, thanks. This is fun. It's a great family over there, so thank you very much. Yeah. Cool. All right, well, thank you, Scott. Thank you, RC.
Did you see my tribute to your Chinese thing? I was spinning.
Oh, look at that.
On MiFi.
Oh.
Wait, hold on. I got that too.
Everyone spin something as a tribute.
All right. What is that? Oh, I wasn't sure what that was for a second, Brian.
Oh, it's a...
Yeah. Oh, you're spinning a little fast. It could have been anything.
Totally anything.
Yeah. Jesus. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We could all just kind of wave goodbye, and we'll end the recording. Okay. Bye. Thanks.